coast. Severe thunderstorms sweeping across the east, bringing torrential downpours, flash flooding, and damaging winds all caught on tape. As a massive dust storm leads to a deadly 25-car pileup in New Mexico. The Southwest now baking under historic heat, bracing for scorching triple-digit temperatures, already canceling flights this morning.
Also this morning, the election showdown. All eyes on the most expensive House race ever as voters now head to the polls this morning. President Trump watching closely, already up early tweeting about it. And the healthcare battle takes a turn overnight. Senate Democrats protesting late past midnight what they call secrecy.
Our goal here is simple.
Plus the moment that has many talking. Jared Kushner's voice, why his rare public moment is getting so much reaction.
New tension with North Korea after the American student held captive, Otto Warmbier, dies at the age of 22. Less than a week after returning home with extensive brain damage, President Trump condemning that country.
It's a brutal regime. We'll be able to handle it.
And Warmbier's parents reacting overnight.
And up for parole. O.J. Simpson ready to ask for his freedom again. Is the former NFL star serving 33 years about to go free? What O.J.'s life is like behind bars right now, and the 3 things he wants to do if he gets to leave prison. One of his closest friends speaking out on GMA.
Live in Times Square, this is GMA with Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, and Michael Strahan.
And we do say good morning, America. It's great to have David here with us this week as George takes a well-deserved vacation. And this Tuesday morning, it is very, very busy, and we're watching severe weather coast to coast.
And summer officially starts tonight, and there are dangerous wildfires that you can see there in record-breaking heat in the Southwest. It's so hot, in fact, that they are actually grounding flights.
Canceled flights. And take a look at this time lapse this morning showing a severe storm moving right into New York City. I think Robin's just drying off now, right?
I got caught in that.
Right in the middle of that thing late yesterday. In just the last few minutes, we're tracking more weather, severe weather into the day. So let's get right to Ginger for the latest. Hey, Ginger.
Hey, David, it is not just the fires and the severe weather, but this disturbance in the Gulf of Mexico, because yes, we are in the middle of hurricane season that we're going to get to. More than 170 severe storm reports, though. So many folks stuck on runways and obviously, like Robin, stuck in that storm.
An East Coast deluge. More than 2,000 flights canceled. Up to 2 inches of rain filling Manhattan roads. This time-lapse showing the storm blast across the city. Surveillance video in Delaware shows debris flying as gusts up to 64 miles per hour blew through.
I'm getting off work early so I can beat this storm, because I hear, especially what they said, something about hail and all that. I don't need that in my life right now.
In Washington, D.C., trees burying cars.
I just woke up to a loud bang and then plaster in my room.
And west of the Rockies, the story is heat. At least 20 large wildfires, California to Colorado. 118-degree temperatures, grounding air travel in Phoenix. And a deadly dust storm in New Mexico, causing a 25-car pileup at the Arizona state line.
So as you see these excessive heat warnings and watches pop up on the map, know this, as your flights are canceled for heat, you're thinking, why is that? Well, the air is thin, and so you'd need a lot more speed to get the plane up or a longer runway, which they obviously don't have. But Phoenix to Las Vegas, San Francisco, even on the map here, you could see numbers approach all-time records in Las Vegas. And even Phoenix, if they hit 117, I was there in 2013 when it did it, it's not pretty. All right, we'll head over to you, Robin. Much more coming up on the tropical storms, or the potential for them, in just moments.
That is not a dry heat. And I got to tell you, I'm from the South, so I'm used to storms. So that one yesterday, when you could see it actually coming at you, wow, it was something else.
Came out of nowhere.
It did. But we're going to turn now to that tragedy involving American student Otto Warmbier, who died on Monday after returning home with extensive brain damage from captivity in North Korea. This morning, some are now calling for a travel ban to that country. Our chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz, has all the details for us. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Robin. It remains a mystery what caused the blood supply to Otto Warmbier's brain to be cut off, causing the severe damage to the brain of this bright, curious young man. But U.S. officials, members of Congress, and his parents say there is no question it was the fault of the regime of Kim Jong-un.
Otto Warmbier, the 22-year-old who returned to the U.S. less than a week ago, unable to walk, speak, or respond to verbal commands, suffering extensive brain damage after being held captive in North Korea for 17 months. passing away Monday. In a statement, his family says when he was carried off that airplane last week, he looked very uncomfortable, almost anguished, but that within a day, the countenance of his face changed. He was at peace. He was home, and we believe he could sense that. The only glimpse of Otto while he was detained by North Korea was this courtroom video. He was wearing that ivory-colored jacket, pleading for leniency after being charged with trying to steal a propaganda poster. After his release, Otto's father finding comfort wearing his son's jacket.
I'm able to wear the jacket that he wore when he gave his confession.
It is unclear what caused the University of Virginia student to suffer what the doctors called unresponsive wakefulness, but the warm beers are placing the blame on North Korea, saying the awful, torturous mistreatment our son received at the hands of the North Koreans ensured that no other outcome was possible beyond the sad one we experienced. President Trump condemning North Korea's brutal regime and treatment of warm beer.
A lot of bad things happened, but at least we got him home to be with his parents. It's a brutal regime, and we'll be able to handle it.
There are 3 other Americans still being held by the North Koreans, but Otto's death could push Congress or the administration to begin restricting travel there, Robin.
People want to know what else. What other action will the U.S. take, Martha?
You know, Senator John McCain this morning is calling the death a murder, which the U.S. should not tolerate. Others in Congress are saying the same. And Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says that the U.S. holds North Korea accountable for his imprisonment. But so far, there is no indication the administration is planning any sort of retaliation. But that is complicated, Robin, by the fact those 3 Americans are still there.
We have to keep that in mind and keep Otto's parents and family in our hearts. Thank you, Martha.
I just feel for that family. We're going to turn to other developments out of Washington this morning. Overnight, the Senate health care battle growing tense as Democrats went past midnight protesting a lack of open hearings over the bill Senate Republicans hope will replace Obamacare. They want to pass it before July 4th. Democrats saying it's been shrouded in secrecy. And of course, that high-stakes special election in Georgia underway this morning. Voters going to the polls right now in the most expensive House race ever. It's in a Republican district where President Trump won by a slim margin over Hillary Clinton. ABC's Steve Osunsami is in Atlanta this morning with much more. And Steve, a lot of pressure really on both sides here. For Republicans trying to hold on to this seat, for Democrats, a real test of whether they'll be able to capitalize on the turmoil in D.C.
That's right, David. A mountain of importance has been placed on this one congressional race. We're outside the polling place where Republican Karen Handel will cast her vote, hoping to win a congressional seat that Republicans here have held on to for decades. Her opponent is trying to make history and upset a president.
More than $50 million. That's how much this morning these 2 candidates have spent fighting over voters in the suburbs of Atlanta.
Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Making this the most expensive congressional race ever.
Hi, how are you?
For supporters of Republican Karen Handel, it doesn't matter that across the country, many on the left see today's vote as a referendum on the president.
Does it influence your thought on this at all? It doesn't change anything.
No, I'm a Karen supporter. I'm a Trump supporter, too.
In public, Democrat Jon Ossoff usually avoids the issue, but his supporters aren't shy, saying that fighting the president has united Democrats across this district.
It has galvanized people who were sitting at home before.
There are folks across this district, there are folks across the state, there are folks across the country who have lost faith. And in this room, this team has the power to help restore some of that faith.
Hi, Georgia. San Francisco just wanted to say thank you.
Groups supporting Republican Karen Handel have spent their money underlining how Democrat Jon Ossoff has gotten most of his large pile of cash from outside the state.
We already have Nancy Pelosi as our congresswoman. Now you're going to give us Jon Ossoff as our congressman.
You know, a squirrel's going to get a pretty decent percentage of the vote if he has $30 million behind him.
The president is clearly concerned, weighing in online, pointing out that Ossoff doesn't live in the 6th and can't even vote in the district he wants to represent.
Ossoff explains that he doesn't live in this district because he's with his girlfriend, who is a student at Emory University. He wants to live closer to campus. Also, the president is up again this morning hammering him on this issue. Robin?
That he is. All right, Steve, thank you. More now on the health care battle in the Senate. Democrats launching a marathon protest last night. Our congressional correspondent, Mary Bruce, well, she was up late on Capitol Hill, as many were. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Robin. Yeah, it was an all-nighter up here on the Senate as Democrats are railing against Republicans for writing their health care bill behind closed doors. This is legislation that could dramatically roll back the expansion of Medicaid and change the way Americans get their coverage. But there have been no hearings and no open debate. Now, Republican leaders insist that they've been working on this for years, that there's been plenty of debate in the past. But Democrats, they aren't buying it. And they say that they are going to use every single procedural tool they have available to them to try and delay this fight and force Republicans to bring their bill out into the open, even though they don't have the political power to actually block Republicans.
And Senate Republicans say they want to get this done before they go home for the July 4th recess. How's that looking?
Yeah, in order to get that done, to meet that goal, well, they have just 9 legislative days left to pull this off. Now, Republicans insist they're getting closer, they're making progress, and that a vote next week is still possible. But, Robin, this morning we still have seen no legislation.
All right, Mary Bruce, up late and up early this morning for us. Thank you.
Hard working as always, that Mary Bruce. Let's bring in our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl, this morning. And, John, you got the White House tracking this health care fight, of course. Democrats angry over what they call the secrecy. But the White House also watching something else. Steve just reported on it there, that very close race in Georgia. The president tweeting about it. A lot at stake even for him on this one.
Yeah, it is only 1 seat out of 435 in the House of Representatives, but this is a hugely significant race, David. This is a congressional seat that has been in Republican hands since before the Democratic candidate was even born. It was Newt Gingrich's seat, so a loss here for Republicans would be a real warning sign about what would happen next year in the midterm elections. That's why you see so much interest here. The most expensive race, and David, by my count, there have been more than a half a dozen presidential tweets on this race in the last 24 hours.
That means we know someone else is watching this closely, the president.
Yes.
A lot of talk on social media this morning about something we have not heard much of before, Jared Kushner's voice. Obviously, the president's son-in-law, his advisor. Here he was talking to technology leaders. Take a listen.
Before I came to Washington, many warned me that the bureaucracy would resist any change that we tried to implement. So far, I have found exactly the opposite.
John, the internet having a field day finally hearing what Kushner actually sounds like, but why now?
Well, it's amazing that we are only hearing from him the first time after 5 months in office. He has a hugely significant job here, David. He was speaking yesterday because he brought in those technology leaders, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, all here as part of his initiative to modernize the federal government. Later this week, he's going to the Middle East to work on Middle East peace. He is speaking because these are important projects. He really needs to be out there. I think one of the more interesting things here is that we have heard more from the secretive Jared Kushner in the past 24 hours than we have heard from the White House press secretary.
Yeah, what's going on with that, John? Because we didn't hear from Sean Spicer yesterday. No cameras allowed, no audio allowed. Is it going to continue today?
Well, in fact, I looked at the White House press schedule today. There is not even a briefing on the schedule. So yesterday, news organizations were not allowed to record the voice of Sean Spicer or show video of him briefing the press. Now, apparently, he's not even going to brief. It's like the disappearing press secretary. No briefing whatsoever. Quite extraordinary, David.
They're going to face a lot of questions about this. All right, John Karl, our thanks to you again, as always. Hey, Michael.
All right, thank you, David. And now the new images showing the aftermath of that mysterious crash at sea between a U.S. Navy destroyer and a cargo ship. ABC's Matt Gutman has new details. And good morning to you, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Michael. This is one of the Navy's worst at-sea disasters in decades. But one of the things that will certainly be investigated is how that sophisticated ship got so blindsided, but also why the crew of that container ship didn't stop to help the Fitzgerald after nearly sinking it. This morning, exclusive new images of the battered container ship, workers surveying that mangled steel prow. That as new details come in about that hellish night. ABC News has learned the USS Fitzgerald's captain was asleep in his cabin when the 30,000-ton ACX Crystal plowed into the ship's top decks. Beneath the waterline, the container ship's bulbous bow T-boning 2 berthing compartments where more than 100 sailors slept, punching through the destroyer's steel armor. The Fitzgerald was flooding, and ABC News has learned the Navy is investigating whether some of the 7 men found dead in that flooded berth were alive when the hatch was sealed off in an effort to keep the ship from sinking. Is there a protocol for when to close the hatch?
Mentality is that you're going to fight any catastrophes, any casualties where they occur, and preserve the integrity of the rest of the ship. And I guarantee everybody would do everything they could.
But instead of stopping to help, multiple GPS navigational trackers show that the container ship continued on its original course for 30 minutes. Only then turning back to the scene, and it didn't alert authorities until 50 minutes after the collision. This morning, the remains of the 7 sailors killed land back in the U.S. Daryl Martin lost his son, Xavier.
It's very hard. It's my only child. It's all I have.
Now, the container ship's parent company told me overnight it is complying with the investigation, but the company couldn't explain what certainly seems like a hit and run on the high seas, why the ship kept going for 7 miles before making that U-turn and waited nearly an hour before calling authorities about what happened. Michael.
All right, thank you, Matt. A lot of questions still to be answered in that. And good morning, Amy. And you're here with the other top story for the morning, starting with a massive security breach.
That's right. In fact, it's being called the largest breach of personal data of its kind. Detailed information of about 198 million registered voters here in the United States has been accidentally exposed online by a data firm working for the Republican Party. The leak was exposed by a cybersecurity expert. Names, addresses, phone numbers were compromised along with voting histories. Well, new details now about what police are calling an attempted terror attack in Paris on Monday. Authorities say an armed man crashed his car packed with explosives into a police van, but he died from his burns. Overnight, police say they arrested 4 of his family members for links to radical Islam. Well, police in Virginia now say the murder of a teenage Muslim girl over the weekend was not a hate crime, but instead a case of road rage. Darwin Torres has been arrested for the beating death of 17-year-old Nabra Hassanin. Police say Torres was enraged after a traffic argument with one of her friends. Tiger Woods has revealed he is now getting professional help to manage his medications and to deal with his recurring back pain and a sleep disorder. He is facing a DUI charge after being found asleep at the wheel last month. And a narrow escape for the pilot of this helicopter when the rotor blade struck the side of an airport terminal. Look at that, in Austria, sending everyone scrambling, as you might imagine. Moments later, the chopper caught fire, but the pilot remarkably escaped. And finally, left-handed people may be smarter than right-handed people, at least when it comes to math, complex math. That's what a new study is claiming. Researchers reviewed the exams of 2,300 students and found lefties outperformed righties at those complex problem solving, especially among boys. Other studies also found a higher ratio of lefties among musicians and chess players. Also a very interesting fact, 4 of the last 6 U.S. presidents left-handed. Wow. Yeah. How about any lefties at the table?
I tried.
No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we all picked up our left hand.
Yeah, you tried.
Still feeling pretty dumb up here.
Yeah. What if you're ambidextrous? Then what?
Well, then you're, I don't know.
No follow-up.
Marginally.
No follow-up.
Brilliant.
Sorry, I shouldn't have asked that
Einstein.
Yeah, we're taking time here from Ginger. You were asking me about Houma, Louisiana. Looking at the map, I know now why.
Yes, because there are tropical storm watches and warnings from Beaumont to Houma and even into the ocean water there, the Gulf, over to the Florida Panhandle. Flood watches from New Orleans to Atlanta. Guys, this is going to be a big rain event. You could see up to a foot of rain. That's the impact. Your local weather 30 seconds away. First, though, the Tuesday trivia as I switch to my left hand, brought to you by Walgreens.
Summer took a hit this morning when Frankie popped the alligator floaty. Plus, snacks and drinks are gone, people. And one of us used up all the sunscreen. I wonder who. We're gonna need some reinforcements, quick.
Copy that. Walgreens makes it easy when summer needs a little help. Your summer base camp is just around the corner, so you can get in, out, and back to those summer shenanigans. Walgreens, at the corner of happy and healthy. This week, redeem Balance Rewards points and get a coupon for 10 times everyday points.
Today is going to feel very nice compared to yesterday. Lower humidity. Our temperatures will move from the upper 70s to upper 80s later today. So a nice breeze with sunshine coming our way. The next system we're tracking, an isolated shower from a cold front tomorrow. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday could see some tropical rains as the remnants of a tropical storm meets a